right, we're going to do a quick rewind of everything. Just to tell everybody, Alan Berkson and Jonathan Yarmis, Dr. Disruptive. We're coming to you live from the Stanford Innovation Center in beautiful downtown Stanford.
Yes, it is beautiful.
Yes, it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's my encapsulation.
All right,
yes.
and Microsoft, the letter's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think not only is the letter good, the vision is sound.
Okay.
Now, being an industry analyst, the one thing we analysts like to do is poke bubbles when the vision gets too far from the execution. Right. And Microsoft is treading a thin line here. So, while I'm enthusiastic about the letter,
it's the right vision, but
it's how quickly, because when you're coming from behind, long lead executions are problematic.
Right. So then we're about to talk about one of the leaders,
which is
Google.
Google.
And Google I/O. So talk to me about. So you're saying developers?
Yeah, developers conferences like I/O, and we talked about Apple's WWDC last month. Right. These things, you don't expect momentous announcements, but what you do get is indications of where the platform's going. Right. And from that perspective, I/O was actually a tour de force. What was your biggest impression? Google everywhere. They made credible announcements on the next generation of the phone operating system, on wearables, on health devices, on cars, and on TV. Pretty much, if one of the next trends that I talk about, the next disruptive trends, is IoT, Internet of Things.
Right.
That's where we embed the internet, not into just smartphones and tablets and PCs and so on, but rather into all kinds of things, our modes of transportation, our homes, our lives, the things we do, the things we wear. From that perspective, Google made a comprehensive announcement that differs from a lot of V1 kinds of announcements. Because V1 kinds of announcements, you put a stake in the ground, you give uncertain dates, no clear partnerships, anything like that. Across the board, they demonstrated, new watches.
Right. But here's my question about Google and the whole Android ecosystem. I use an iPhone. Why do I use it? It's not because I think Apple's a better product. It just works.
Yes.
The apps, when you download them, they work. There's not this. So how is that going to play out?
We've always had this inherent tension between the value of proprietary platforms and the value of open platforms.
Apple versus Windows.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And we're seeing that play out in this market, in the tablet and phone marketplace.
But in the end, Windows won that battle.
Yes. Android's on 1 billion devices. They've doubled in a year. Their tablet market share, I was reading something yesterday or this morning, is approximately 62%. They've caught up and passed. And Apple has attempted to go down market, with the.
But I would say that it was the hardware. So it was Dell, it was HP who helped standardize the Windows platform, not Microsoft. So is it the hardware vendors in mobile who are going to help standardize that's going to drive it? Is it Samsung?
That's you use an interesting word, standardize, and that's one of Android's challenges. Is unlike Windows, for which there was a rigorous standard that breached little differentiation. Android is a much more complex platform where the forking of it and the fracturing of it and the multiple versions, even Google went to great lengths to try and point out that they believed that it wasn't so important that you measure which version of Android people are running. Because the truth of the matter is, there are many more people running the current version of iOS than are running the current version of Android. Google said it's really a question of how many people are running the current iteration of Google Play, the application store ecosystem manager.
Right.
And in that instance, they were up in the high 80s, maybe 90%. So people had a current application enabling platform.
But so let me get to my point about the standardization. Dell standardized a set of hardware, motherboard, memory, controllers, video, so when you write software, it worked.
Yes.
You write software for Android, and you're not always going to get a great experience because because the hardware is not standardized.
Although,
So that's the value that Dell and HP brought to the Windows market. That's why I'm saying that.
Yes, and we're not going to have that in the Android ecosystem for a variety of reasons. The good news, I think it's getting better because people are recognizing the challenges of a forked standard. So
then the question becomes.
But some of its strength is its ability to support diversity, where you can have processors.
But what made the PC market was not Windows. It was Dell. It was HP. It was IBM. Because people didn't buy Windows. Yeah. I didn't go buy Windows. I didn't buy a Windows computer. I bought a Dell. I bought an HP.
What you actually bought was a machine to run Excel and Word.
Right.
It's the applications that operating systems are fundamentally boring propositions. We spend a lot of time talking about them, but it's the application ecosystem that matters. And therein lies the battle. When I talk about Android's numbers, Android's got big numbers, but if you look at application developers making money, the story there is a much closer story, to some extent favoring Apple, because they play at the high end, so people have a greater propensity to spend. But it's applications that matter. So I don't want to get into, no, Dell did not make the PC market. Excel, 1, 2, 3, those are the kinds of things.
Well, the function.
Yes.
Right, but if it wasn't for, and I'm just going to play devil's advocate here, if it wasn't for the fact that Dell created a stable platform for developers to write those functions.
IBM created.
Well, IBM. Right, but I'm saying Dell, IBM, HP, as opposed to there were dozens, if not hundreds, of PC vendors, in the 80s. I mean, it was such a fractured market.
Yes, but we learned very quickly to define what compatibility was. Compatibility
IBM
in that fractured. Yes, and it was defined by not just running Windows, but you may remember what the acid test of compatibility was. Flight Simulator. Yeah, right. Because Flight Simulator was the number of times I got caught playing Flight Simulator and say, "Oh, I'm doing compatibility testing."
And we'll just continue here. So, IBM compatible was the term.
Yes.
Is it Samsung compatible? Is it Nokia compatible? Is it?
We're not at that point yet. Right now it's Android, and to some extent, I think the market has shrewdly realized that within the Android sphere, I'm not going to just pick the lowest priced phone, or depending upon your market, but I'm going to pick one from a credible vendor, whether it's Samsung certainly, or LG, HTC, Motorola. That there are a few large players who have significant and have been gaining market share because they do pass the compatibility test.
Right. All right. So and Google. So last month we talked about Apple picking up Beats. So Google had to play the game, and they picked up
Songza. Yeah, Songza. Which at one level you could view Songza as Google acquired another music service. But I actually don't. That doesn't. Why would Google buy such a small and relatively insignificant player in the music space?
A lot of people want to know.
Yeah, and what I think they bought was more a recommendation engine. One of the things Songza was really good at was finding compatible music.
My question from last month.
Yes.
What song comes next?
Right. Yeah, but as I said last month, I don't think that really matters for music. But there are a lot of other things where it has a huge difference. So if you bought something, and I can start to answer the question, having bought something, what's next?
Amazon's been doing that for a while now.
Yes, and Amazon does kind of.
So you think that this is about the Google Play Store and understand? It's not just about music; it's about consumer habits.
And not just the Google Play Store, but commerce. So I think it's a much broader vision than just music. Because I stand. I've had a month to reflect on it, and I still think you can play 1,000 songs next, and it really doesn't matter. And the individual, I someday I'll try that with you. I'll sit you in front of competing music services and ask you, which one gave you the best next song recommendation? And you'll go, I don't know, you know. Nobody can evaluate what's a good next song.
No, but I think that.
But you can evaluate it's a good next purchase.
Right, and that's obviously that's always been your mantra, is from a privacy point of view, I'll give you my information, but you give me the experience.
Yes, you give me the value. Give me the value. You know, I mean, I'll gladly share my information, and then we'll talk about what Facebook did to abuse that trust. But I'll gladly give you the information if you can turn it into value for me.
Right.
And the for me is a real touchy one.
Right.
You know, but I think that with the songs acquisition down the road, Google will have the ability to draw some non-intuitive conclusions of, you know, you bought these things, you know, gee, inevitably you bought a hookah pipe and you live in Colorado, we'll sell you Doritos, you know, and it doesn't require, you know, software to figure that one out. But I think there are many more complex relationships between time value purchases that Songs has got some interesting technology that applied to music, you know, is actually probably harder than applying it to commerce.
Right. But it's more qualitative and more subjective.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of your concept of privacy, what's going on with Europe? The right to be forgotten.
Yeah. Boy, did they, you know, this is one of those, you know, 10 years from now, textbooks will be written about the law of unintended consequences. But, you know, right. the issue here is Google and the other search engines which index everything, you know, have incredible memories. And there may be things in there that are either inaccurate or more troubling to me about the European case, things that you just think should be private because you don't want them in the public domain.
Right.
You know, that the European courts have ruled that, yes, you have the right to request things to be withdrawn and submit them through a process, and if found to be infringing, that the search engines will have to remove links to their content, regardless of its veracity. You know, that's the one that blows my mind. Regardless of its veracity,
right.
I just, you know,
I want to rewrite history. I want to.
Yeah, you know, I don't want people remembering I had a drunken bender as a, you know, sophomore in college.
Right. Right.
Several drunken.
So 50 years from now, or 30 years from now, are we going to look back and say this is just a ludicrous? I mean, already it's.
I think 30 weeks from now.
But the the whole idea of the illusion of privacy that we have. I think that's really what it is.
Yes. You know, not only complete illusion. I always hate to channel my inner Scott McNeely. You know, the founder, one of the founders.
He doesn't get quoted that often.
No, it's amazing what happens when you get acquired by Oracle. But you know, the former CEO of Sun. You know, his famous observation about privacy was "get over it." You know, and at the time, it was a wildly unpopular thing to say, and yet, you know, here we are. And that was probably 10 years ago or more. You know, yet here we are. You know, privacy, get over it. You know, there's so many things. If you think you can delete history, I've seen the statistic that, you know, if you spend a day in New York, you've probably had your picture taken over 1,000 times. Right? Yeah, because street corners, people with video cams, people shooting.
Well, and then there's two sides to that. There's the covert or the surveillance that we don't know about, and then there's Facebook.
Yeah.
Which it boggles my mind that people don't understand that you're playing in their sandbox.
Yes.
It's not. It's their game.
Yes.
And you're the product.
Yes. You know, the old if you don't know how a company, you know, what they're selling, they're selling you.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
But with that though, and when you've got 1 billion users and being used in, that's what's so troubling about this Facebook issue. And this Facebook issue is, that they conducted an experiment whereby they said, we wonder if we can influence users' sentiment by controlling what appears in their news feed. Right. It's like, okay, Alan, you're kind of a grumpy, curmudgeonly guy. We're going to show you happy stories and see if we can just make you happier. And Jonathan, you're way too happy. We're going to put all the depressing stories in your news feed and see if we can influence you negatively. And they did this with, depending upon how you want to look at it, they did it with, 1 million users. So 1 million users out of 1 billion people is 1/10 of 1%.
But
yeah.
But 1 million.
But 1 million people.
It's like, no, look, when we do business surveys, we're happy if we get like, a couple hundred or 1,000 people when we do a survey.
1 million people is more than the city of San Francisco. San Francisco, the city itself is about 650,000 people.
Right.
They tested on San Francisco plus. And
it's a bunch of psychologists in a lab playing with their rats.
Yes, exactly. And there are some amazingly interesting things about that. And to me, the amazingly interesting things. I remember once. First job out of college, I worked nights and weekends. I was a sports broadcaster. So I had days free, and I was living in the city, and I was wandering around New York, and I happened to, one of those people said, oh, you want to go to a screening? And they were testing a pilot of a new movie. And you and 9 other people sat in a room, and you had a red button and a green button. And when you saw something you liked, you hit the green button. When you saw something you didn't like, you hit the red button. And on the basis of the 10 of us, and maybe they repeated this several times, the show Maude got on the air.
Right. And
now don't blame me. I was hitting the red button a lot, but I was college educated, so that every time I hit the red button, they said, "Oh, good, oh, good." Yeah. But they tested it with 10, 20, 30 people.
Right.
Now you've got the ability to test things, whether it's your software product, whether it's your movie ending, whether it's a whole bunch of things, your plot hypothesis, your idea. You can test this thing in real live conditions.
How much money can Facebook make selling market research?
Yes.
And the question is though, are they right? Are they wrong? Are they within their?
Well, the problem I have, there's this quaint concept called informed consent. And it basically says, if you're going to muck around with me, I should have the right to know you're mucking around with me. Now, there are several problems with that. One, if I tell you, Alan, I'm going to try and make you feel miserable, it may be self-defeating.
No, that's Heisenberg, right?
Yeah. Or, now Heisenberg's uncertainty. But it's the observation.
The observation, right. The observation affects the experiment. Right?
Yeah, so I understand the challenge in that. Facebook's defense of it was, well, you agreed to it in the terms of condition. Yeah, have you read it? Yeah, no.
But even then, it's not. They're adjusting our news feed with their algorithms.
Yes.
Right.
All the time. Right. Yeah.
But we think that it's for our benefit.
Well, yes.
Big Brother is making sure we're happy or sad, apparently.
Yeah, and to me, the informed consent issue is where I have a problem with that one. They breached the trust here, and the good thing for Facebook is they've continuously done this. This is the 3rd or 4th serious thing that they've done, and the impact is approximately 0.
So I was going to say, has it impacted how you use Facebook?
Me?
In the slightest?
Me? Not at all.
Same here.
Yeah, and I know I could probably name 12 people who've quit Facebook because of this.
Right.
Yeah, and this is the audience that cares. 12 people.
Right.
and I'll bet you 5 of them have come back. So yeah.
Well, the problem is that, and this is, I think, one of the challenges, in terms of Facebook is, when we talk about business, there are markets that are winner take all and markets that are competitive. How do you compete with Facebook? Because your audience is there.
Yeah.
Right?
I still think we're going to see the emergence of some new platforms, and this is a trend I've been talking about for since probably 2008, and it's still slow to manifest itself. But right now, everybody has cast their lot with the advertisers, because at the end of the day, when you go to monetize, no matter how lofty and noble your intentions are,
for hundreds of years.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The truth of the matter is, advertising actually represents a small percentage of our GDP. I believe we have yet to identify and bring to market those business models that enable and empower and incent customer-friendly behavior. And there's this whole concept called VRM. It's the flip side of CRM. If you know CRM,
yes.
That's customer relationship management.
Yes.
The vendor manager relationship with us. What we really need is VRM, vendor relationship management, where the vendor, where the user owns the relationship with the vendors and is willing to exchange information in a fully empowered, aware value exchange. This is a concept, I actually thought I came up with it when I gave a speech. I think you know Tatiana Conzavilli.
Yeah.
I spoke at one of her events in the Bay Area, and we were talking about social CRM, and came up and said, the actual full expression of this is VRM, and we analysts live to invent acronyms and categories, and I was really enthused, and somebody came up to me afterwards and said, yeah, Doc Searles has been talking about that for over a year.
Right.
I was both delighted that somebody of Doc's stature, and if you're not familiar with him, go Google the Clue Train Manifesto. Doc was one of the early user champions in the internet, and he has been involved in and around and a ringleader of the VRM community for 8 years or so. And it's certainly, as with so many things I get excited about in technology, slower to take off than I would have hoped. But I believe that we are going to see the emergence of platforms that are not advertising funded, not beholden to the advertiser, not selling out our privacy, but in fact can make money by empowering us to share our information in a responsible fashion. And you may call me naive, and it's not the first time, but I believe that opportunity very much exists, and advertising is both a small segment of commerce, in the bigger picture thing, and one that leads to these perversions.
But advertising is an intermediary, so there's a disintermediation of getting a closer connection between the vendor and the customer, because you have information that will help the vendor know you better.
Yes.
And going back to what you said before, you want the vendor to know you better, so they give you what you want, and what you don't even know you want.
Yeah. But let me also turn that around and say, I don't think all advertising is bad advertising. I think advertising can inform, it can educate.
My favorite advertising line of all time: shampoo, rinse,
repeat. Yeah. Double the consumption of the product.
With one word.
Yeah. But I think this whole, what we're calling these days native advertising, the whole idea is, if we have this rich consumer information exchange, brands can't just talk at us. They need to converse with us. They need to deliver value to us, and that content as part of the value delivery and not this distraction, this interruption, is in fact a valuable contributor to the dialogue. I think brands have a long way to go in that one, because the notion of listening is still an alien concept.
Well, think about, we just had the World Cup, and that makes, because every time there's a major event, there are these, what do they call them, war rooms?
Yes.
They're brand war rooms,
yes.
where they're sitting there saying, all right, how can I be Oreo?
Yeah, Luis Suarez. Yeah.
Right.
Created wonderful opportunity.
Or what happened with KLM?
Yeah.
Adios.
You
know, yeah. No, but you know, and these are opportunities that they're trying to, but they still have that broadcast model.
But by the way, if, you know, I don't know if you saw my tweet. You know, I brought up Luis Suarez to some extent because it gave me an opportunity. Do you realize that you have a greater chance of being bitten by Luis Suarez than a shark? Yeah.
You heard that here. This is what you get from part of my discussion.
But I actually, somebody did a rigorous scientific analysis, and they made some assumptions about, you know, the population and what. But you know, this is his third bite.
Well, that was the thing. It's like you can imagine. Okay, one time. Yeah. Right. Second time.
Yeah.
Three times.
The third time during the World Cup, nobody will be watching.
Right. Yeah. And Tyson saying, "Oh no," and you thought I was bad.
Yeah. You know, now, pardon my disruption. I've modeled this after Pardon the Interruption on ESPN, a sports talk show. We're now morphing in that direction. If those guys start talking technology this afternoon, I'm really.
All right, so we'll have to get back to technology. One thing, this is sort of
But while we go back to technology, one thing, you know, that I wanted to talk to that related to what we were talking about the ability to test things on a large scale. So I actually think there are some interesting companies doing things like that out there. I'm trying to remember, the note, but there's a large industrial company that actually posted a fundraising campaign on Indiegogo. A large company. You know, and it wasn't because they needed the money for innovation. It was their way of doing market testing and validation. Because there are a whole bunch of situations where if I ask you, would you buy this? It's like, oh yeah, sounds great. You know, and I said, yeah. You know, but we've discovered over time that your willingness to say yes, I'd spend money, when the reality of actually having you write a check, and it's like, well, I said yes to 74 other things, and you're 74th in line, and I'm really not prepared to spend money with you. Right. These large companies have discovered that Indiegogo is a real interesting way of testing market sentiment and with real purchase intention.
It flips it on its head too, because they pay you.
Yes.
Meaning normally you pay a company to do market research for you. Now they're paying you to participate in your market research.
Yes. And I love things like that. You know, I mean, you know, that they get real market feedback and the cost of innovation defrayed. But for them, you know, I think the money may, you know.
No, but it also.
You could envision maybe they get real money out of it, but.
Bottom line is that if someone's putting money down to make that vote.
Right.
That's a different, you know, that's putting your money where your mouth is.
Yes.
But it's also, it flies in the face. We're in an instant gratification society. And Indiegogo or Kickstarter, you're giving somebody money for something that you're going to get 6 months or 12 months down the road.
The instant I think the instant, you know, I'm not saying we don't have that, but I think the instant gratification thing, you know, is a fad's not the word, but we're overemphasizing it. And by that I mean, I love that everybody is focused on same-day delivery, you know, and you've now even got people talking about, with the Internet of Things, we can actually deliver things to you before you know you need them. You know, that all of that's wonderful. There are a set of things for which that's important, and there are a set of things for which that's really not that important.
Well, yes, but the whole concept that someone's going to say, I'm going to give you money now for a product that you're going to create and deliver and
yes. But a product that doesn't exist today, and we're trying to decide if there's market demand for that.
But there's the other piece of that is that I want to help you. It's not just I want that product, but I want to help you. And that's two pieces. That's a really interesting combination.
Yeah, I think the companies that have done that, you know, A, are brilliant, and B, it's going to foreshadow a lot more of those kinds of things, you know, and the whole notion of how we improve the innovation experience. It is a real interesting and fertile area for competitiveness, and does help address that instant gratification thing. Because if I can test and get things to market quicker, with greater conviction and greater.
Again, it's a disintermediation of it's bringing the vendor closer to the customer.
Yes.
Although we can't talk about Kickstarter without talking about potato salad.
Yeah.
What is it up to? $45,000.
Yeah.
I don't know if people out there have heard that a guy's making potato salad. Kickstarter campaign. In the first 5 days or 10 days, he raised like $40,000.
Yeah. Well.
And he had. I loved his stretch goals. $300. Get a better recipe.
Yeah. Well, some of it being here in Fairfield County, the home of P.T. Barnum.
Right.
There's more than a sucker born every minute. I think there's 1,000 suckers clicking every minute.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So $10, you could say, yeah, I helped the potato salad guy.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that the scheme of these things being not just for the home innovator with a small project, but rather how large enterprises can factor the community into their product planning purchases in a real and definable way, is very powerful and is something more than what Facebook can offer up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Facebook may be your, customer acquisition, traffic generating vehicle, but getting, the call to action is go to Indiegogo or Kickstarter and say you'd like this product, and if enough of you say yes, we'll go make it.
Right. Well, I know that each month we talk about something that you like companies that help you do what you want to do better. So last month we talked about OpenTable.
Yes.
And so this month, what's your favorite for the month?
Well, the interesting thing is, OpenTable has been replaced by this reservation hop. And if you haven't seen it, I'm trying to, Business Insider had a story about them. What reservation hop does is basically they go around to OpenTable, they're sharing the inventory of the restaurant in order for you to make reservations. But if you go to make a reservation and the restaurant's already booked, that time slot's shown unavailable.
Right.
What Reservation Hop is doing is making reservations. And they're calling up all these nice restaurants all over town, booking reservations, putting it under, the name of George Smith, and then you can go to Restaurant Hop, see where they've got reservations, and pay $5 or $10 for that reservation. After which they give you the name. Go to the restaurant and tell them you're George Smith.
StubHub for restaurant reservations.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Now this is one that.
So maybe see now I think the next step is you've got to create where I can make reservations and sell them.
Well, that is what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
No, but they're selling you. They're making reservations and so they're like the scalper.
Yes.
They're scalpers.
Oh, you're saying create the market? Well,
create a market for reservations.
That's probably on Craigslist now.
Right. Right.
And this is what there are businesses that strike me as sleazy.
This is not good.
Well, good is a hard. That's a value judgment.
Yeah.
Because is the existing system good? You want to have dinner at French Laundry?
Right.
Yeah. And those, French Laundry is one of the great restaurants up in Napa, Sonoma area, one of the great restaurants in the country. Small restaurant. If you want dinner there, make your reservation now, and probably about 18 months from now, you'll be able to get in there. And these guys are, one step away from creating a marketplace for reservations. Right now, they go make the reservation and sell it for, I believe, a fixed price. Why not auction off reservations?
Right.
Yeah. And there are things here that, San Francisco just shut down an operation that was basically selling parking places in the city of San Francisco.
Right.
And there are two ways of looking at that. One right now is if you're driving around looking for a parking place, it's an incredibly inefficient system. You're wasting gas, creating traffic. Why do we not have an efficient system? The reason why the cities are fighting it, as with so many things, they're not getting their cut, because there are municipal systems where there are sensors in parking spots, and you can go look at those kinds of things. And at that point, somewhere along the way, money has changed hands. The municipality is getting their money, and they're thrilled to take the money. What they get upset is when some private entrepreneur does it, denying them of their future revenue opportunity. And I won't get into the moral issues of that one, because I'll just only confuse myself. But I think there's so many things now where when you start thinking about what this Internet of Things enables and the efficient allocation of resources,
and that's the basis of capitalism, and trying to, if I can allocate resources in a more effective manner than you can, then I can compete better than you.
Yeah, and I understand that there are things governments should do to protect against monopolies, or understand natural monopolies, or create open marketplaces. But I think we've got issues now where, as with so many new technologies, we're way ahead of the regulators, we're way ahead of the legislators, we're way ahead of the courts, and the reaction, they're like the bad IT departments of yore. They see a new technology, and the answer is no. Yeah. But it's a good thing. No, I'm unfamiliar with it. It wasn't mine, therefore no.
Yeah. No, and I guess what gets me is, I think of ticket scalping. That's the analog, and it's the scalpers who get online and buy all the tickets, and it sort of disrupts that market, that free market, so that only the people who are willing to pay a premium end up getting the ticket.
Actually, it doesn't disrupt the free market. It empowers the free market.
Right. No,
yeah, because what we've got now is a regulated market.
It disrupts the socialist market.
Yes. Yes.
Can you say socialist market? I don't know if that's sort of a...
I don't know. Are you a Democrat? If you call yourself one, that's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
A socialist market.
Yeah.
All right. So you wrote something down here which I wanted to talk about because it has the word disruption in it. And there was an article in the New Yorker. It was New Yorker or New York Magazine? It was New Yorker.
Yeah.
About Christensen's disruptive innovation.
And it basically said that it's nonsense that big companies can't, that the ability to do it is overstated. And there were some interesting points. Part of it, I used the term, disruptive technologies, and was named by a client and friend now, Dr. Disruptive.
Right.
I can't tell you the number of vendors who approach me saying, we've got some disruptive technology. And I go, it's wonderful you tell me that. To a user, disruption is not a value proposition. So first of all, I think disruption and where it's valuable and what it actually is overstated. But the point they tried to make was that Christensen handpicked a few examples of creative destruction that in fact worked. And the truth of the matter is, for a lot of vendors, A, they don't work. They'll get the timing wrong, they'll get the feature set wrong.
Well, what we just talked about with Microsoft, with the Windows Phone. I mean, that was disruptive.
Yes.
It wasn't effective.
Yeah, and there are a lot of things that go into that. But it's also one of the challenges, especially in this public markets, what have you done in the last quarter? Why did Dell go private? One of your favorite companies. Right. They went private because they felt like the things they needed to do for their long-term survival were at odds with a quarter-to-quarter existence. And that's a gross oversimplification, but that's pretty much why they needed to do it. So if you're a large vendor, the problem with many of these disruptions is that the biggest impact in the short term is self-impact. It's great to say, if we don't attack our business, somebody else will. And the reality of day-to-day business, if my CEO told me that, I'd say, oh, so you're going to reduce my quota for next year? I mean, you need this company to grow 15%. You go do that. I hope that thing you're flogging, gives you 7% because I'm only going to grow 8%. And in those situations, what happens in these big companies. Their ardor for the disruption is tempered by the reality of self-impact. And the challenge they've got is there's probably one 15-minute window, over a 7-year time period when it's exactly the right time to get in.
Right.
And that 15-minute window occurs between 3 and 3:15 a.m. on a weekend when it's snowing, when you've had your long plan.
Well, what is that window? What do you mean by that?
Well, by that I mean this is the perfect time. The technology is about to take off on that hockey stick, so that betting on it, that you've got enough time to actually bring your solution to market. You'll crush the early entrants because you've timed it so perfectly. You've got the right feature set and the right business model so that it doesn't really crater your business, but in fact, proves accretive, a favorite Wall Street term.
So is a strategy to create pockets of innovation within your organization that can either succeed or fail in a small? I mean, if you're a big business, what are you doing? You have to innovate. You do have to sort of think about how someone else is going to eat your lunch.
But yes and no. Certainly, we act as if companies live forever, and the truth of the matter is a lot of them don't. Look at the Fortune 500 from 20 years ago, and without knowing, I can state with certainty, half of them probably don't exist anymore. They've either gone away or they've gotten smaller so that they fell out of the Fortune 500 or they've stayed flat.
Pan Am was in the Fortune 500.
There are lots. We could have a fun list of all of these kinds of things. But I think the answer is, if you're thinking you're going to live forever, the answer, it's a nice survival instinct. But the truth of the matter is, you've probably got several strategies. One of them is milk your monopoly for all it's worth.
Right.
CA does that really well. CA hasn't brought out an innovative product.
What's the saying? CA is where old software goes to die.
Yeah. And Oracle to some extent, has been that for a long period of time. And they dabble in new things, but the truth of the matter is, Salesforce, who's born of this era, is coming to market quicker with more aggressiveness and so on. So that discussion of what a big company should do about disruption, the answer may well be you're going to be disrupted. That your attempts to respond to disruption are doomed to fail.
Right. All right, we got 5 minutes left. We got our favorite segment, pet peeves and kudos.
Yes. I'm going to start with a kudo for a change.
A kudo?
Yeah, I'm normally the cranky one. Well, it's a kudo from a massive system outage. So, but I live here in Stamford, and I'm served by Cablevision. And last week, I was having problems with my various devices accessing the internet, and I was about to begin my troubleshooting, which is, okay, is it the device? Is it the cable modem? Is it the cable system? Is it the wireless router? Is it, there are any number of things that I need to do that usually start with restarting all of my devices.
Before you call them, you want to make sure it's not something of yours,
yes,
or that it's something you can debug.
Yes, and the interesting thing is calling them gets to be a challenge because when the internet's out, I don't have their phone number stored in my directory.
Right.
I now can't look it up.
Right.
So what Cablevision did, and this is one of the things I really love about it, because what stupid companies do in that situation is send you an email saying our service is out.
Or they put up something on their website.
Yeah.
Right, a status page.
Yeah. Cablevision texted me. I got a text message alerting me that there was I was probably experiencing a service outage in my area. And that was right at, one, it was prompt. Before I started all my 15 minutes of doodling around to figure out the problem wasn't mine. Number two, they used a mechanism that actually would likely be working through the outage of the problem they had. So, when's the last time somebody said something nice about it?
I think you set a precedent here.
Yeah.
No, but that goes to the whole point of, customer experience is probably the most overused word today in marketing. But in the end, good thing with a product. There's always going to be good things and bad things, and how you handle the bad things impacts that customer experience.
Yeah.
So when you call customer service, do you have a great experience, or in this case, do you anticipate, which is what you love?
Yes.
You love it when you say you anticipate what I'm going to need.
Right.
Before I do, and now you're actually giving me something that
right.
that has value.
Yes, and they again texted me that the system was back up, within about a minute or two of my actually having noticed that my system was back up. So they were timely. They did everything right except prevent the outage in the first place.
Which is the pet peeve.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any pet peeve? There are so many. We could do a full segment on this. Yeah.
No. I think it's okay. We just have a kudo. That's unusual for part of my disruption.
Yeah. It's summer. It's a beautiful day. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful weekend. I'm off to have fun. Let's end on a happy note.
That's right.
In spite of Facebook's efforts to make me grumpy.
So this has been Alan Berkson and Jonathan Yarmis, Dr. Disruptive. We came to you live from the Stamford Innovation Center. We are here every month to talk about things that interest us and hopefully interest you and have some fun. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next month.